You'd think I'd start getting less and less nervous hitting that live button, but every single time I'm going to hit it, I'm like, oh God. And then I just hit it. And now we're here and I'm live. And today I have Arcady Sosinov in the show with me, and he is the CEO of Freewire. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him, and then I'll let him finish his introduction about himself. But Arcady is the founder of Freewire Technologies, and he serves as the chief executive officer. He has led the company from ideation, formation, incubation, and now oversees customer acquisition and revenue growth. And I want him to tell you a little bit more about what is Freewire as well. So I'll bring him in. And hi, Arcady.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. So tell me more about Freewire and you and your formation of Freewire.
All right, well, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say that CEO these days stands for Chief Email Officer, not Chief Executive Officer. So, it's a pleasure to be here. This is a company that I founded about 6 years ago, and we are on the forefront of EV charging technology, electric vehicle charging technology. The thesis behind founding the company was to develop technology that enables ultra-fast charging of electric vehicles. And the problem with ultra-fast charging is grid infrastructure. So we develop these combination of battery systems plus power electronics to allow you to go to a charging station, plug in, and quickly charge your car. We're talking about 10 to 20 minutes, but without the cost of infrastructure and without the negative impact on the grid that fast charging would normally create. The company is now about 40 people. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the East Bay, and we just announced yesterday that we closed a $25 million Series B. My background is that I spent most of my life in the financial services industry. I worked at a hedge fund before founding Freewire. Went to business school at Berkeley and became really involved with and passionate about clean tech, climate change, and the intersection of automotive. And that's why I'm here today.
That's awesome. I think it's really funny how you just said we just closed a Series B round of $25 million. You just gotta tell me more about that. So you closed your Series B right before the lockdown, and just can you tell me more about that? Like what was happening in the world at the time while you were raising this money, and kind of what happened after?
Yeah. Most entrepreneurs would tell you that after raising a round like that, you want to take a moment to reflect and be mindful about what happened. But we didn't really have the opportunity to do that, right? I didn't have a chance to celebrate, a chance to enjoy the little moments, right? We went right into this strange new environment. But yeah, it's something that I've been working on for about a year and a half. That's, honestly speaking, that's how long it takes entrepreneurs to raise money. So for about a year and a half, I was working on this raise. I closed the vast majority of it right before the pandemic hit the US, right? Right before the shelter in place started in the San Francisco Bay Area, right before New York was so horribly affected. And I closed a little bit of it after the pandemic started, but by that time, everything was already in motion. So it wasn't going to be affected by what was going on in the market. I find it interesting, though, that in raising this money, as we were getting to the finish line in February, and kind of mid to late February, there was really no concern in the venture capital space about what was happening in markets. We knew that something was happening in China, something important, something big. We knew that Italy was starting to get hit pretty hard, and Iran, but that didn't stop anything. And there was this kind of feeling that it's not going to happen here, right?
Right,
It's that
right,
same feeling that people get in all kinds of disasters. Like, wow, I feel really bad for what's going on there, but it's not going to happen here. And
right.
so I just now reflecting back on it, obviously hindsight is everything. I find it amazing that we didn't think about it as seriously as we do now, and which is lucky for us as a company. I'll admit that right away. That if we understood how serious the market conditions were going to be, then I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if we would have raised that money, and without it, we would have had to close up shop.
Right.
Um, but
Wow.
thankfully we did, and thankfully it gives us the opportunity to kind of survive through this crisis And I think that we are in a position, we're luckier than most companies right now. And so, um, I'm happy to describe how that affects my team and my workforce and my investors. But, I do want to put that out there right away that we are in a good position and we are lucky. And I understand that most people are not there.
Yeah, I I'm very happy for you, and I feel like those of us that are lucky enough to be in a position where we can continue to work should, because the economy in the world needs to continue and the world hasn't stopped. So, and we need to still be able to provide jobs and a future, and we still need to drive the technology forward even when there is a crisis as this occurring, because things will eventually normalize. Now, I did, while you were talking earlier, I downloaded some photos of your mobi. Is that the right word for
Yeah,
it?
yeah, we have
Yeah.
a couple products, the mobi and the boost. Yeah,
So I wanted to show it to our viewers because not everybody might be familiar with what exactly that means. So let me actually take myself out of here so we can just see the photo. You can, or maybe I can use a different photo here. How about that? So show us, what is this?
yeah. So this is one of our two products. And this product that we've had in the market for 3 or 4 years now, this is the Mobi. It allows you to charge electric vehicles without needing any infrastructure whatsoever. So there's a large battery pack inside that Mobi, and you can literally joystick this device onto any parking lot, any retail facility, and charge cars anywhere you are. And so if you, for example, go to LinkedIn's campus, Microsoft's campus here in the Bay Area, Netflix, Google's campus. They have dozens and dozens of these running around their campuses. And that's probably the closest place you'll find them, but you can find them as far as Tokyo, um, in Bangkok, Thailand. We've had them out in New Zealand and so many other places where infrastructure just isn't available for charging, and this is a way to bridge that gap.
That's fantastic. And are you saying, did you say your other product is the Boost charger?
Yeah, the boost. Yeah. And that's a product, that's it right there. That we just put out a press release yesterday, really announcing our fundraise and this product. But this is designed for retail locations. Like you can think of a convenience store, Starbucks, strip malls, gas stations, parking lots, etc. This is an ultra fast charger. So you plug in your car, you're charged up in 10 to 20 minutes. But it connects to the grid at using low power. So you're going to pull a lot of power from the device, but the device is going to pull only a little bit of power from the grid, and that's good for the grid. That helps site owners deploy that charging infrastructure, and it helps utilities by not impacting them in a negative way.
That's fantastic. Which, does every market benefit from technology like this, or are there specific markets that you develop this technology for? By markets, I mean like regions, locations, countries.
Yeah. So I mean, the way we look at it is any place with limited grid infrastructure, and you have to understand how expensive it is and how much negative impact there is on the grid when you fast charge your car. If you have an electric vehicle, a Tesla, for example, and you roll into a Walmart parking lot and you want to fast charge your Tesla, that one charge can use as much energy as the entire Walmart store. Now
No.
imagine what happens. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now
One
imagine what
car.
happens when you have one single vehicle, one single vehicle,
Wow.
and now imagine what happens when you have 10 vehicles in the parking lot, 100 vehicles in the parking lot. There's just not enough infrastructure to go around to be able to fast charge everyone's cars. And so this technology uses a storage buffer system. So there's actually a large format battery inside the charger, and that stores up that energy and that power capacity and delivers it to you when you need it, but it's not going to impact the grid in a negative way. And it's the same principle as your hot water tank in your home. When you take a shower, you drain that hot water tank somewhat, let's say a third or a half, and it gets replenished over time using a low input system.
Right. Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's really cool. So I mean, I'm really excited about the technology, and I want to talk to you more about that. But I want to make sure that this is, um, we talk about what's going on right now, and you guys have had to um, go back to work. So you're back at work. So you have some of your team is working from home, and some of your team has to come back to the facility to continue producing them into the production facility. So why don't you tell me right now what your current work situation looks like?
Yeah, what a strange situation. We are in a unique position, right? Because we actually make products. We make all of our products in-house here in the Bay Area. In fact, we received a significant amount of money last year from the California Energy Commission to scale up our manufacturing capacity. We're in an old Dodge Chrysler auto plant,
Is that what that
right?
is?
So, yeah, yeah.
That's so
So,
cool.
40, 50 years ago, they built Dodge and Chrysler trucks here. And the warehouse
Oh,
was abandoned for many years. And now we've moved in and we've started converting and building electric vehicle charging technology, which is just a great kind of cycle, right?
poetic. Yeah.
Um, it's so poetic. And so we make things here and we have to make things. And so being shut down for us and working from home is not as easy as it is for maybe a pure software company.
Right.
So when the shelter in place started, I instantly turned into a lawyer. So I started reading through the ordinances that were coming out from the county of Alameda, from the county of San Francisco, from all the 7 counties around here that put out ordinances. We started reading the kind of ordinance that Governor Newsom put out on a statewide basis, and we tried to understand it because it was actually fairly difficult to understand what it meant for businesses.
Yeah.
So we did the safe thing, which was we sent people home. But then we started to hear information that there were certain industries that were exempt and considered essential businesses. And in fact, the California Energy Commission, which monitors utilities and companies like ours that provide electricity to customers, they actually put out guidance saying, listen, we think that companies that own and operate and develop EV charging technology, we think they fall under the essential business category because people still need to get around. It's like a
Right.
gas station, right?
Yeah,
If my
exactly.
charging systems go down, people can't get to where they're going. And in fact, here in California, we have a lot of first responders and emergency personnel who actually use electrified vehicles. There are electric fire trucks, there are electric ambulances, there are electric, this and that. And so we need to be able to keep our systems running. And so we just designated a certain very limited personnel, about 10% of our company, that were going to come to the office to make sure that operations continue. But most people were at home. And we continued that way for quite a while, for about 4, 5, 6 weeks maybe. Um, and then some of us started to get things got worse, right? We told our employees that we would watch market conditions and conditions on the ground here in California and specifically here in Alameda, and to see if things improved. And if things improved, we would start transitioning people back into the office. But unfortunately, it got worse. It got a lot worse, right? And the news coming out of places like New York were that was scary.
Yeah.
And I had to make a tough decision. Should I bring people back in and risk the health and safety of them and their families? Or should I sacrifice my business and my operations and keep people at home? And so for about 6 weeks, I made the tough decision to do the latter, to keep people at home. And that was tough. That was really tough. And it was especially tough because you didn't know how things were going to change tomorrow, next week. I mean, if you remember the shelter in place ordinance, it came out, 10 p.m. one night and it was effective as of midnight,
Yeah.
right? So you're supposed to be able to give your employees guidance and they look to the leadership to be able to give them that guidance, but you don't know until 2 hours before midnight.
Right.
Um, that's
On a
really tough to do.
Sunday.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So lots of emergency meetings happening. Um, then some of us were personally affected, which I think really cemented my thinking of keeping people home. So one thing I do want to mention is I did contract coronavirus, um, positive for it, and I'm happy to go into my symptoms and how I felt,
I'd love
in a
to.
few
I'd
minutes.
love to
But
hear. Yeah.
yeah, happy to talk to you about that. And on top of, but I was one of the lucky few, right? Which you'll find out about in a second because I'm sitting here, I'm still fine. But one of my employees, unfortunately their grandmother succumbed to it, right? And so it affected all of us, right? We're a family. It affected all of us, and so those are the tough decisions I had to make. Now, fast forward to today. California is a model state. San Francisco Bay Area is a model location. It is incredible what we've been able to achieve here through social distancing and other measures. And so as of this Monday, I started having a very limited amount of personnel start coming back in. So about 10 people of our 40 people are now coming back into the office on rotating schedules with very inconvenient practices at the office.
Such as.
And I laugh, but these are serious things, and these are very inconvenient. We all wear masks, so I'm able to not wear a mask right now because my door is closed and I have a private office. But as soon as I go out and see anybody, I'm wearing masks. We have hand sanitizer everywhere. We are paying for all of our employees to get antibody testing. So if you're an employee of Freewire and you want to get antibody testing, we are covering that for you, right? And we encourage that. We make sure that people are in on a rotating basis. So not more than 10 people in our 20,000 square foot office at a time, period. And depending on no eating in the kitchen, right? So you can't eat together. And unfortunately, these practices are going to exist for a long time. This isn't a 2-week thing. This is going to exist for a very long time, and we just have to start getting used to them. So we're doing everything we can to keep people safe. And so far, besides myself, I don't know of anyone else in the office that's contracted it. And I think so. I think we're on our way to becoming more normal,
Yeah, a new normal.
a new normal.
Yeah. So then tell me about you contracting corona.
Right. So as part of my job, I travel all the time. Before really the lockdowns and the flight restrictions started happening in the U.S., I traveled every single week. And I have no idea where I picked it up. It's impossible to know. It might have been on a flight. It might have been at the airport. It might have been in the Uber rides that I take every once in a while, right? So who knows?
Right.
But long story short, I started feeling certain symptoms, but the symptoms were so mild that it was hard to determine whether they were coronavirus or something else. I felt
Right.
some body aches that people will typically feel before flu, but the body aches were so light that maybe I had worked out too hard and maybe that was the cause of it. Then I started to feel a little bit of stuffiness around my nose and kind of the head area. But again, maybe those are allergies, right? They were so mild that it was hard to tell. And the strange thing is the symptoms weren't happening at the same time. I was getting them one by one by one. And every day there'd be a new symptom and the old one would disappear. So really hard to determine what was going on. Of course, as soon as I started feeling my first symptom, which was the body ache, I socially distanced, right? I stayed at home even before the stay-at-home orders were coming out, so I didn't expose myself to anybody. But I didn't know what it was. Finally, the thing that really tipped me off was the fact that one morning I wake up and I make myself coffee at home, just like I usually do, and I don't usually you smell the coffee throughout your whole apartment, and I didn't. And then I tasted it, and I said, "Wow, this is really weak today. Did I not put enough grounds in?" Um, I had lost all my sense of taste and smell, 100%. And it was the weirdest feeling I've ever had because sometimes you lose some of your taste and smell if you have a cold or stuffy nose. This was not like that. This was 0%, right? I could, and I'll admit it on your podcast, I took a bottle of tequila and drank right out of the bottle. Couldn't taste a thing. It tasted like water. And the only reason I knew I was drinking tequila was because I felt the warmth in my chest. Um, so at that point, I knew something was strange. And
Wow.
I called my PCP. They recommended me for a swab, which was also an interesting experience I'm happy to describe. And then the results came back and I was positive.
Wait, what's so interesting about a swab? I'm thinking it's just swabbing your mouth. I'm
It is
incorrect?
not swabbing your mouth. It
All
is not
right, so
swabbing.
then what is it?
It's the longest Q-tip you've ever seen in your life. And they put it in your nose and they put it so far up it feels like it's touching your brain. And they leave it there for at least 30 seconds to a minute. And it is a very uncomfortable feeling and you will cry. I did cry because you can't help it. There's a swab so far up your face and your nose that it's touching your brain. Um,
Wait, did you cry
and
because you were in pain, or did you cry because just your tear ducts started crying?
the tear ducts started crying.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
it was a little bit of pain, but not so much pain that I wouldn't recommend it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and but the most interesting part about the experience is that this was a mobile clinic set up in the middle of San Francisco at a UCSF campus.
Okay.
And I would expect to go to this mobile clinic and there'd be lines out the door because that's what's being reported in the media. I'm told to get there at exactly 9 a.m. And because if I get there too early, I'll be waiting in line. If I get there too late, I'll miss my appointment. So I get there at exactly 9 a.m. I drive in. There's not a single person there. The only people there are the people that are doing the swabs. Uh, no other cars, no lines. I drive right in. They do the swab. It takes 2 minutes at most. And I'm very curious at this point. So I park my car kind of right outside the testing facility where you can see the entrance and wait there for 20 minutes because I'm just inquisitive and not a single person shows up. There was no lines. There was nobody there. And which was so weird to think about that people were just not getting tested. And maybe San Francisco is different, but it is not what you're seeing on TV. I can tell you that.
Interesting. Wow. So then, okay, so you find out you have corona. I do want you, when we were talking last week, you were telling me how you found out, and you were in Miami kind of when all of this happened. And you
Yeah.
told me kind of like how, day zero, or not even day zero, day like -6. I don't know how to really describe timelines right now, but tell me
Mhm.
about that story because I feel like some of our viewers might find that interesting.
Yeah, 6 BC before Corona. Um, yeah, I was in Miami for a conference, and well, we all know Miami. You know, it is a place where it feels like its own little world, right? It doesn't feel like it's part of the US. And so things were happening. I mean, there were flights from Europe were being canceled. You know, flights from China were already closed down. The borders were starting, there's talk of the borders starting to be closed down. Miami, no, no change. Their conferences, people were shaking hands, no face mask, bars were packed, restaurants were packed, people were sitting next to each other dancing. I mean, it was Miami. It was purely Miami. And so the strangest part was being there and realize and thinking to myself, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong with this country because that's the way folks were reacting. And then getting to the airport and getting on the flight and sitting next to a couple who were head to toe in gear, face masks, goggles, gloves. The wife had brought cleaning supplies and was wiping down everything around the seat. And that seemed so strange to me, having just been in these packed restaurants in Miami, and then getting to San Francisco and realizing, oh my God, this is different. This is serious. So all of a sudden, I took a 5, 6 hour flight, and the world had changed. So I think there are definitely parts of this country, having experienced that don't understand what we're going through, even today.
Agreed. Agreed. So you mentioned that you were in a conference, and so right now, your company would be in a lot of conferences. You would have had South by Southwest. You would have been in a bunch of different conferences. First of all, tell me how Corona has affected that, and what have you done differently then? What is your marketing team doing differently? Like, well, they're not in conferences anymore, and it's important to see your product and see how it works, but are they adapting any new ways of showing the product that they either were not doing as much before or had never done before in order to kind of make up for this lack of conference time?
Yeah, this is a big hit to our industry. Some industries in particular they do a lot of business through conferences, right? Ours being one of them. And you're right, I was at a conference in Miami. The following week, I was supposed to be in South by Southwest where we were exhibiting our technology with our largest investor and corporate partner, BP. We had an entire house that was going to be transformed into a net zero energy house, and we were going to be powering it. And it was right on Rainy Street in Austin. It was a beautiful, beautiful setup. And that was canceled days before we were supposed to kick it off. I was supposed to be in Tokyo this year for the Olympics because our technology is being featured out there. There is a lot that we were going to do from a conference perspective this year that is just no longer possible. And this was going to be a breakout year for the company from that marketing perspective. So unfortunately, we've had to completely shift things. You can see we have some brainstorming right here on the board behind me. This is all marketing because marketing has changed more dramatically than anything else. And so, yeah, there's had to be a lot of account-based selling or account-based management, ABM or ABS, depending on how you call it, basically targeting key people in certain companies that we want to target and finding out how to reach them, whether it be through LinkedIn messages, whether it be through targeted ads specifically to that type of role in that company, which you can do on Google Ads and Twitter and LinkedIn. You can do that. We've had to completely shift that strategy. Now, one good thing about this is that marketing spend has gone down a lot, right? Because
Sure.
conferences are expensive and and digital and guerrilla tactics are much cheaper. So we're saving a lot of money that way, but we don't know that we're being as effective. That's the fact of the matter. We have had deals in our pipeline that have closed during the coronavirus, but those deals were pretty mature. They were in contract negotiation stages. They were, there was no reason for them to die. But then
Right.
we expected more deals to come into our pipeline that would close in Q3 and Q4. The honest answer is they haven't come into the pipeline yet because no one is opening up new ideas. No one's creating new opportunities, right? People are worried about spending money and people worry about what kind of projects they're going to be able to do because there's uncertainty. If you want to install EV charging infrastructure, which is that's our business, right? You might be a franchise chain, a retail chain, and you install EV charging. You don't know when that's going to happen. You can't bring a contractor to your site to do a site assessment of how much power you have and where you want to put it.
No.
You don't even know that business will ever come back, right? The point of EV charging on a retail location is that you want to bring consumers to the site.
Right.
You're a Starbucks and you want more people to buy coffee. You don't know that that's going to happen or when that's going to happen. And so deals that should have come into the pipeline now are not, and that's a scary thing. So um, I don't know that any amount of marketing will 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 beat the uncertainty that's happening in the market, especially on the retail level.
Sure. Sure. Wow. So we've been talking for almost half an hour, and I mean, we could talk for 3 more hours, I'm sure. But is there any other thing that I haven't asked you that I should have? Any other highlight or maybe something that you would like to leave other CEOs with, or entrepreneurs, or people? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, for other CEOs and entrepreneurs, I mean, do everything you can for your people to make sure that they feel comfortable and that their families feel comfortable. So one of the things that I'm trying to do right now is I offered, obviously, for my employees to pay for antibody testing because I think that would make them feel very comfortable. The other thing is, I would actually like to start buying antibody tests. So I've started reaching out to contacts in the medical industry and contacts in Australia and Japan and China to see if I can actually get antibody tests here and bring them for my employees to be able to take at home. And that's a very strange thing to say because normally things have to get FDA approved and that's the medical device, et cetera, et cetera. But there have been exceptions made by the administration to allow you to take these at-home tests without FDA approval, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out how to do right now. Um, Another thing from the working from home perspective that there are certain parts of a business that are going to be running smoothly right now and certain parts that are not. And the parts that seem to be running smoothly are things like contract negotiations, procurement. People have time at home to be able to read through contracts and comment and get them back to you. And so responsiveness has actually been really good on that front. But again, the thing that has not worked well is the early part of the funnel in marketing and selling. Because that early part of the funnel, that's relationship building, right? That's meeting a person. That's being able to go shake hands, being able to maybe go out for lunch together and talk about your products, going out to a site and checking it out and seeing how your product can provide value propositions to them. That part, feels dead. So, what we've been trying to do is really foster the deals that are in our pipeline and our existing customers, and upsell them. But that early part of the funnel, I just don't have a good solution for right now, because I think that until the uncertainty ends, um, there's nothing coming in.
Wow. Have you
Yeah.
changed any of your strategies just to, and that's probably a big question to ask you when we need to cut so soon, but maybe like any broad stroke strategies that you have changed in order to mitigate that?
Hmm. It is a really broad question. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that we do is first, we're a venture-backed business, so we have to inform our shareholders on what's going on. So I've gone back to our shareholders and I've said, listen, here's where I see the weakness in the market, right? And I see weakness happening in Q2, reduction of deals in Q3, but I think things are getting it back to normal in Q4, right? So you have to first of all go out and have your investors adjust for that new reality and make sure that everyone knows what's happening. In terms of strategies to kind of fill in that pipeline, again, the big one has been upselling. We have a long list of Fortune 50 blue chip customers, and going back to them and saying, here's an opportunity to talk about expansion, right? And it doesn't have to
Right.
happen tomorrow, but you're happy with us. And so really refocusing on the customers that you have, um, kill any business development opportunities. So if you're trying to go into a new vertical, don't at this point. Really use those resources to go into your existing vertical and your existing customers and be able to sell into that. And that's what we've done.
That's awesome. All right. Well, anything else?
That's it, but I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it was very nice to have you. Thank you so much for your time. I know that are fitting me in between a bunch of meetings, so I really appreciate it. And with that, it goes to me, and I really appreciate the people that watched today. Arcady is amazing. The technology is fantastic, and I feel honestly very honored to have him on the show because I know that this technology is groundbreaking, and frankly, we're going to see it everywhere. So tomorrow I'm going to have a post-mortem to talk about this week's and last week's lives. I've started creating lives for myself and for my customers and covering different time zones. So we're covering America, we're covering EMEA, and we're covering APAC. So there are some challenges and some opportunities with that that have been really great to handle. And so I'll be talking about that tomorrow in the postmortem. So I hope you guys have a great day and a very happy Friday. Bye.